Ms. Bondi, you were a courtroom prosecutor for a great many years. As a courtroom prosecutor, did you ever have an enemies list?
No, Senator.
And you went on to be Florida's Attorney General. As Florida's Attorney General, did you ever have an enemies list?
No, Senator.
As Florida's Attorney General, you were responsible for hiring into the Florida Department of Attorney General, correct?
Senator, the Attorney General's office in Florida is the third largest in the state, approximately 1,400 employees and approximately 400 lawyers. Only California and Texas are our bigger offices.
And you were responsible
So, yes.
for hiring into that office while you were Attorney General?
Yes.
Would you
Senator.
have hired someone into the Florida Attorney General's office who you knew had an enemies list?
This wasn't just a Senate hearing. It was a stress test of our democracy. When a potential attorney general dances around questions of enemies lists and political prosecutions, it's not just about one nominee. It's about whether justice in America will belong to the people or to one man's revenge.
Senator, to cut to the chase, you're clearly talking about Kash Patel. I don't believe he has an enemies list. He made a quote on TV, which I have not heard. I saw your sign, or Senator Durbin's sign, about Kash. But I know that Kash Patel has had 60 jury trials as a public defender, as a prosecutor. He has great experience in the Intel Department, Department of Defense. I have known Kash, and I believe that Kash is the right person at this time for this job. You'll have the ability to question Mr. Patel.
And I'm questioning you right now
do.
about whether you will enforce an enemies list that he announced publicly on television.
Oh, Senator, I'm sorry. There will never be an enemies list within the Department of Justice.
Thank you. The FBI's, what is the FBI's role in national security and counterterrorism, and how important is that role?
You know, Senator, I believe now more than ever, counterterrorism is so important and vital in our country. We are facing such incredible threats here and abroad. I'm sure many of you saw former FBI Director Wray's interview on 60 Minutes. He talked about the threats that, frankly, again, I don't have my security clearance, but the threats facing us, Senator, from China right now that are so great. The sleeper cells within our country.
Given that importance, is it responsible to call for shutting down the FBI's counterterrorism and national security work? And will you, as Attorney General, impede or shut down the FBI's counterterrorism and national security work?
Senator,
Two questions.
Senator, I believe that national security is vital right now for our country on so many fronts. I could continue to discuss many others.
And the FBI's role in that?
And the FBI plays a vital role in counterterrorism
which
throughout
you will
our
or will
world.
not shut down?
I will look at each agency. I have no intention of shutting anything down right now, Senator. I am not in that office yet, and if confirmed, I will look at each individual agency and how it should be managed, but counterterrorism right now in our world is vital.
You have said that Department of Justice prosecutors will be prosecuted in the Trump administration. What Department of Justice prosecutors will be prosecuted and why?
I said that on TV. I said prosecutors will be prosecuted, to finish the quote, if bad. Investigators will be investigated. You know, we all take an oath, Senator, to uphold the law. None of us are above the law. Let me give you a really good example of a bad lawyer within the Justice Department, a guy named Klein Smith, who altered a FISA warrant, one of the most important things we can do in this country. So will everyone be held to an equal, fair system of justice if I am the next Attorney General? Absolutely. And no one is above the law.
Under what circumstances will you prosecute journalists for what they write?
I believe in the freedom of speech. Only if anyone commits a crime. It's pretty basic, Senator, with anything, with any victim. And this goes back to my entire career for 18 years as a prosecutor and then 8 years as Florida's Attorney General. You find the facts of the case, you apply the law in good faith, and you treat everyone fairly.
And it would not be appropriate for a prosecutor to start with a name and look for a crime. It's a prosecutor's job to start with a crime and look for a name, correct?
Senator, I think that is the whole problem with the weaponization that we have seen the last 4 years and what's been happening to Donald Trump. They targeted Donald Trump. They went after him, actually starting back in 2016. They targeted his campaign. They have launched countless investigations against him. That will not be the case if I am Attorney General. I will not politicize that office. I will not target people simply because of their political affiliation. Justice will be administered even-handedly throughout this country. Senator, we've got to bring this country back together. We've got to move forward, or we're going to lose our country.
Yeah, I think the concern is that weaponization of the Justice Department may well occur under your tenure. And we want to make sure that that's not the case, that you remain independent, that you remain able to and willing to tell the president no when that's necessary to protect the Constitution and the integrity of the department. So that's where I'm asking these questions. We talked in the meeting about the contacts policy that has prevailed really since Senator Hatch sat in that chair and demanded it of the Clinton Justice Department through all the administration since then, with the exception of a brief period under Attorney General Gonzalez, which he corrected and which did not end well for him. There has been a contacts policy that limits contacts between the White House and the Department of Justice to a very few senior officials on each side. In your role as Attorney General, if you are confirmed, will you maintain, defend, and enforce that longstanding contacts policy?
Senator, yes, I will meet with White House counsel, and I will meet with the appropriate officials and follow the contacts policy.
My time has expired. Thank you, Ms. Bondi.
Senator.
What you just watched wasn't a routine confirmation spar. It was a stress test of whether the Justice Department will remain a law enforcement institution or become a political instrument. Pam Bondi said the right words. No enemies list, no one is above the law. But the substance and the evasions matter more than the slogans. When a nominee won't unequivocally reject Kash Patel's public talk of targeting political opponents, that's not a misunderstanding on TV, it's a permission structure. Authoritarians don't start with mass roundups. They start with normalized categories like the deep state. Then they retrofit the justice system to hunt those categories. An enemies list isn't just a bad phrase. Operationally, it means tasking investigators to open files based on identity rather than evidence. It means reinterpreting statutes to criminalize political dissent. It means using powerful tools, subpoenas, national security letters, even surveillance authorities, to punish critics. American law anticipates these temptations. Courts have said selective prosecution is unconstitutional. You need evidence of both discriminatory effect and purpose. But proving that after the fact is slow and uncertain. The real safeguard is cultural and structural. Prosecutors are supposed to start with a crime and then find a perpetrator, not start with a person and go shopping for a charge. That's why the White House DOJ contacts policy matters so much. After Watergate and Nixon's literal enemies list, both parties accepted a bright line. Only a tiny handful of senior officials can discuss specific enforcement matters, and every contact gets logged. When Senator Whitehouse pressed Bondi to defend that norm, the only acceptable answer was an unqualified yes, with a commitment to publish the contact rules on day one and release periodic logs. Anything softer invites a shadow pipeline, where political aides just check in about cases, and that's how pressure becomes policy. The questions about journalists weren't hypothetical either. DOJ has news media guidelines for a reason. Compelling reporters' records is supposed to be a last resort, with high-level approval and narrow tailoring, precisely to protect the First Amendment. Will prosecute anyone who commits a crime sounds neutral, until you remember how easily leak probes and conspiracy statutes can be stretched to intimidate sources and chill reporting. A nominee serious about press freedom would commit to the guidelines in writing and promise to notify news orgs whenever possible, not leave it at basic. On counterterrorism, vagueness is danger in disguise. The FBI's national security work isn't a partisan luxury. It's a set of authorities and disciplines built up over decades. The Attorney General guidelines, minimization rules, FISA compliance, interagency threat sharing, because we learned the hard way what happens when intelligence is politicized or when mission is starved. If you talk about shutting down or restructuring without a concrete plan for how to preserve lawful CT capacity, you're not reforming, you're risking blind spots. And if you dangle that thread in speeches while hinting at an enemies list, you're signaling to career agents that their real job is to pick sides. That breaks morale, drives out talent, and hands adversaries. There's also an ethical core here that's older than any administration. Prosecutors have special obligations to seek justice, to avoid conflicts, to disclose exculpatory evidence, to resist political interference. Those aren't platitudes, they're enforceable standards. A nominee should be volunteering recusal triggers, inspector general access, and special counsel thresholds, not waiting to be cornered. No one is above the law means nothing if, in the next sentence, you recast a single political figure as the permanent victim and promise to make it right. That's not independence, that's a loyalty oath. So what should viewers learn to look for beyond today's clips? Clear written commitments to maintain and publish the White House DOJ contacts policy, to adhere to and publicly post the news media guidelines, to log and disclose contacts about specific cases, to preserve the FBI's counterterrorism mission with transparent oversight, not slogans, to reject by name the idea of any list of political targets, to empower the Inspector General and protect whistleblowers who report political interference. If a nominee won't put those guardrails on paper, the rhetoric about fairness is just air. This hearing is a reminder that institutions survive on habits as much as laws. After Nixon, Congress rebuilt walls between the president and prosecutors. After COINTELPRO, oversight bodies constrained domestic spying. After the post-9/11 overreach, we wrote minimization rules and audit trails. Those guardrails were bipartisan, not because parties agreed on everything, but because both accepted a basic premise. The Justice Department doesn't belong to a man, it belongs to the law. If we erode that premise by normalizing talk of enemies and revenge, by blurring the contacts policy, by waving away press protections, what you lose first is trust. What you lose next is freedom. If you believe the Attorney General must be the people's lawyer, not the president's fixer, hold nominees to specifics, not slogans. Demand the letters, the logs, the guidelines in writing. Share this hearing with someone who shrugs and says it's all politics, because that shrug is how norms die. Add your voice below. What's the one written commitment you expect from any AG nominee on day one? Should the Senate require public contact logs and media guideline pledges as a condition of confirmation? And if you want more rigorous, plain English breakdowns of how these guardrails actually work, subscribe and stay with us. We'll keep doing the homework so power doesn't get to rewrite the rules in the dark.